So 289, today we're talking about some standouts from game two last night between Montreal and Washington, a game in which we saw Washington, they go up 2-0 in the series. Now we're heading back to Montreal. Now we get to see what Montreal plays like in Montreal with their home environment and how that whole situation plays out. But I just think Washington, they're a team that you're really going to have to look out and watch for now. And we obviously were questioning whether or not they're going to be a really good playoff team because of the stuff that was going on in the regular season, where they focused enough and blah, 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 blah. But I just think with now how the way they're playing, they look dialed in. And through two games, they just look dialed in constantly. And this is going to continue. We're going to see this head throughout the course of Montreal as well. I just think Washington, the way they play the game. And this isn't just Ovi. This isn't just guys like Dubois, Tom Wilson, and Alexi Protas when he's healthy and when he's back in the lineup. He has yet to play in this series, and some other guys. They are just a heavy team. They bring a lot of a physical presence. They're very engaged in their forecheck. They're very detailed in their forecheck. They close gaps with speed. They pressure with speed. They angle guys off with speed. Like everything about their F1 and F2 is speed, and mostly not on their F1. Their F2 and F3 are really good at layering and being able to create that support option and being able to close down the walls. I just think their F1 is just so hard to defend against, especially when you're going against some defensemen on Montreal who aren't quite as big and they don't quite stack up physically. I mean, you can argue guys like Caden Gooley, maybe even Jaden Struble, maybe David Savard in that mix who could stack up physically. Obviously, Lane Hutson's the one outlier in this scenario, like when he's going against guys like Tom Wilson and even Ryan Leonard. And Ryan Leonard's obviously not the biggest guy, but when he's still going up against those guys, it's still tricky for him to get around that guy, those pressure situations. And I think that's been a something that he's had to deal with a lot physically so far, Lane Hudson. It's been a challenge for him on D zone retrievals to try and retrieve pucks and use his deception, use his feet like he normally does. This is just a heavy team. This is a complete playoff team. And Washington, I really do believe they're going to do some damage on the longer term. I don't think, and this is not a knock on Montreal because Montreal through these two games, they've kept it somewhat close too. And you have to give them credit. Game one, they pushed for overtime. They were able to make a final push in the back half of the third period to be able to tie that game and then swing the momentum a little bit more into overtime. And then game two is still relatively close for a majority of the game. It stayed close up until Montreal, or not Montreal, up until Washington was able to get that empty netter and seal the deal there. So outside of that, it's just a game where I still feel like Montreal has a chance. I still feel like they can get two games in the series. I would imagine Washington's going to push for 5 or 6 games to win this series, but I have to give Montreal credit. And in terms of the guys that they have looked really well, Caulfield and Suzuki, the chemistry those two have together has been elite so far in the playoffs. Just been absolutely dynamic to watch, really exciting to watch. Uri Safkowski played so much better in game two. I felt like Lane Hudson had a better game two than game one as well. And Ivan Demidov, obviously, just a little bit not as noticeable there. Patrick Laine, especially with him, the whole situation with him was interesting because after I remember there was a play in the second period where I don't know if he was slashed or he took a puck off the hand or something, but he was like shaking his hand as if he was injured or some sort. And I remember throughout the third period and a little bit more towards the back half of the game, he wasn't playing as much. And I was curious about that and how that whole situation is going to play out with Line, if he's injured, if he's not, or if they're just sitting him for the sake of sitting him and because he wasn't playing well. But I think because of the fact that they needed a goal and he wasn't on the ice, that was definitely interesting to me at least. But outside of that, I think a majority of Montreal's guys were noticeable. Like their third line, when you talk about Anderson, I think Josh Anderson's been one of their most effective players throughout the series so far, and mostly physically because of the way he engages, the way he's able to stack up to guys in terms of size in Mont or on Washington. Like he's able to hold himself to guys like Tom Wilson and some of those other bigger guys, even Ovechkin. I mean, Ovechkin's not charging at him as much, but mostly Tom Wilson has been the guy that has been a target for Anderson and likewise. And but Josh Anderson's really been really effective. Dvorak and then Gallagher, that trio is just nails together. They forecheck with pace. They're really engaged. They know how to read off one another. Their chemistry is really underrated for Montreal's group. And I think they just forecheck and play together physically very effectively. And they bring something, bring an element to that line that not many of the other lines on Montreal have, and the presence that they have physically. So I think that line is really unique, really rare to have, and just really engaged all around. And they played really good hockey throughout this game too. And as for Washington's side, I think Connor McMichael is the most effective player offensively for them, just in terms of goal production, how he's engaged around the net, how he's maneuvering around the net, how he's coming off the post to be able to draw guys to him, draw guys away from him, stuff like that. He was really good with his reads near the net and around the crease, and sometimes even inside the crease. I thought he's really noticeable there. One of the guys I really like for Washington, more of an underrated guy, but a natural playoff guy who brings and elevates his game come playoff time is Anthony Beauvillier. I think he's just been a great fit in their top nine. Obviously, brings speed, brings a similar game to Andrew Mangiapane, and I think he's been more effective than Mangiapane. But just the way he plays and the way he's engaged physically, the way he's engaged off the puck, the way he's engaged with his speed, his forechecking, his tenacity, his ability to angle guys off and close ice in half. I think he brings a lot of elements that are valuable at this time of year, and he's been very effective coming into the lineup. I obviously Pierre-Luc Dubois has been Pierre-Luc Dubois and it's just been unbelievable throughout the year. It has continued that throughout the playoffs so far. And was really noticeable. I think Ryan Leonard, you could say he played his most effective playoff game so far, arguably his most effective game as a Capital so far. The way he's engaged physically, the way he's forechecking, the way he's able to hit guys and be engaged physically there, but also forecheck, be able to maintain shoulders square to opponents, to be able to box out guys in that sense, and just was very engaged defensively. Offensively, I liked his ability to run the net, his ability to get home and jam rebounds and be able to jam rebounds around the net and be able to be active there. He's just very effective in that sense, and he was doing a great job of being able to provide some offensive impact. And of course, Dylan Strome, who had a goal in this game. I really liked his game once again. I think outside of Tom Wilson, Tom Wilson's been really consistent throughout these two games. I think Dylan Strome's been really underrated in that sense. Just the way he's been moving the puck, the way he's been able to feed his line mates, the way he's able to feed guys up the wing. And not the fastest player in terms of foot speed, but he's really smart in terms of his distribution, how he's able to manage the puck and manage the pace and manage the tempo of play as well.